Good morning, everybody. So while um, the gentleman is organizing that, persons that are joining us online can also see the presentation. I just thought I'd continue giving an overview of the GIZ's new Career Path Development for Employment program. Yeah? And just to highlight that this is a new project of the GIZ that is commencing actually 1st of June. So in next week actually it's starting. And the exciting thing about this program is that it is in the context of the just energy transition. Yeah, just to give a little bit of So the program, the new program, Career Path Development for Employment, has been informed by discussions that the German government has been having with the South African government, particularly aligned to those two main challenges that the country is facing. It's no secret. I mean, the country is facing huge economic recession and having, hemorrhaging jobs left, right, and center. Particularly amongst young people. And of course, the big topic of the century is just transition, particularly just energy transition. However, we know that young people in the country neither have prospects for employment generally, but more specifically, if just energy transition is going to be the topic of, let's hope, for the next couple of years, they are nowhere near prepared for entering employment in this particular sector. Yeah? So CPD for E, Career Path Development for Employment, is building on a previous intervention that was supported by the German government, by GIZ, called Skills Development for a Green Economy. Some of you may have engaged with that. It was supporting employment-oriented skills development, started off with a focus on 2 trades, training of electricians and training of plumbers, and then that expanded to 13 trades that are supported through centers of specialization. And more importantly, when there was feedback from the system that young people, even with a 3-year training in TVET colleges, young people weren't transitioning to employment. There was then a specific intervention co-financed by SECO that focused specifically on supporting young people to transition to employment and to support particularly the demand side. The previous program at first was a classical TVET program focusing on supply side interventions, and now through those insights we supported not only supply side interventions but also demand side interventions, and then this bridge to transition young people. We worked very specifically in that co-finance with SECO, supporting the NBI, and Anthony is going to speak about the installation, repair and maintenance program, because we started with a piloting on that led to a replication and a growth of that, and he's going to elaborate on that. So the German government, as you would have seen recently with the visit by the German Chancellor in South Africa, just transition is the topic of the day, and of course, critically, employment linked to that. So what is the new program? Career Path Development for Employment, similar to SD4GE, is focusing on what is called an integrated employment approach, which means, in essence, that the focus is not only on supply for labor, but also on demand for labor, the matching element, and then critically, right at the bottom, it's focusing on framework conditions for improving the framework conditions for economic and employment policy. So if you look at it, the main objective is to ensure that the employment prospects for young South Africans in a sustainable and increasingly decarbonized economy, just transition, are improved. Yeah? So that's the broad objective of the program. And the program has 4 output areas. Thank you. I'm going to start off with the supply side, the output area on the supply side, because that is traditionally where we are focused, although, as I've said, we've started through SD4GE to work in the other output areas. So the supply side, working, maybe before I get to that, the political partner for this new project remains DHEAD. It remains the Department of Higher Education and Training. However, it is also possible to collaborate with other departments, even with higher education being the main political partner. On the supply side, the focus is going to be on demand-driven TVET and skills development offers. So the shift, whereas the predecessor of the program focused substantively on the classical approach, the classical TVET programs, this is shifting even more now to a more adaptive, more agility in the system, so shorter skills programs aligned to employment. So it's going to be looking at emerging new profiles for employment. It's going to be looking at also how to ensure that private sector is part of the is also involved as part of the training provider. So workplace-based training is going to remain critical there. So just to say, for those who don't know, SD4GE also supported dual training. So training was at a training institution, but also in companies. This is going to remain a part of that. Then getting to the demand, we all know that classically the approach has always focused on larger companies, because larger companies have been traditionally involved in training for their own cohort of employees. But there's an imperative, if we're going to grow companies who are involved in training, it's critical then to work also more and more with SMMEs. So to unlock, in order to work with SMMEs, quite substantive work needs to be done to unlock that potential. And this is where we have worked very closely with the NBI to support the township economy to unlock that potential. So the important thing there, it's supporting entrepreneurship, supporting SMMEs to access markets, new markets, access supplies, access new customers, but also to improve their business, the businesses. So quite a bit of BDS services, but all of this aligned to, of course, not only the township economy, but in the context of just transition, these eco-industrial parks become critical localities for such interventions, for CPD4E. And then there's this critical element of matching. Yeah, if I go back to SD4GE, the intention or the expectation was that that matching was going to be a key element of what colleges would provide. So what do we mean by matching? Matching are those, we worked, for instance, with Harambee, and they refer to this as close the gap interventions. You know how young people exit exit a TVET college or exit a graduate from a program, and then friends of ours always make a joke about that. They expect to be the CEO. Yeah, they have no understanding of what it takes to get into your job, into a new job, problem solving, networking with critical players to enable them to transition. So those kinds of interventions there, it's not only soft skills, it's also important upskilling, for instance, in emerging areas of interventions. We've just completed an intervention with Sanedi and IEPA. You'll hear a little bit about that. That is focused on training graduates from the electrician field to become EPCs, energy performance certification. So to assist in that process where public and private buildings have to actually measure their use of energy to ensure that they become more energy efficient. So here, this transition to employment, it's a range of upskilling, reskilling, and ensuring that young people are given a little bit more hand-holding to transition them to employment. And at the bottom here, the program is going to focus a lot on innovation. What is new? What is emerging in this context of just transition? So quite a bit of research, quite a bit of looking what's happening in other areas, learning from others. We've just recently done a scoping exercise on the use of performance-based financing mechanisms, particularly focused on how that could be relevant in the IRM context. So that is going to continue as part of CPD4E. It's, as I said, it's starting June. It's going to be a 3-year, the project term is going to be a 3-year until May 2025. There's already talk of an additional year, so more funds for possibly until 2026. The budget is €6 million from the BMZ, which is the German Development Department of International Development, for lack of a better word, BMZ, and then co-financed by SECO with another €4.5 million. So in total, it's €10.5 million over that project period, that 3-year project period, which in the greater scheme of South Africa is just a little bit, it's like peanuts considering what the government actually puts into this area of work. But these funds are really meant to not only test, but to ensure that young people transition to employment in this important area. So the next steps on CPD4E, so for the period June to August, the focus will really be on conceptualizing and preparation. And this is where stakeholders like yourself are critical. Because, of course, this is not going to be just a a process of one person sitting at a desk conceptualizing how it's going to depend a lot on engagements with stakeholders like yourselves, ensuring that we have a common understanding on the goals and intervention areas with DHEAD and the broader ecosystem. And a key element of all GIZ programs is the development of a steering structure that is going to guide the implementation and be almost like guide development of a roadmap, and then identification of possible implementation partners. And this, the NCPC, of course, has collaborated with GIZ and not so much with us in the skills project. So we really looking forward to piggybacking on NCPC and the range of stakeholders that are already part of this network. And of course, we're now starting, my colleague who's sitting over there, Jürgen, is very critical to the development of the operational planning for this first year of implementation. And of course, we taking whatever we can learn from the predecessor program, SD4GE, seeing what can be continued in that and what will be no longer, what will be transferred into the system for to continue with. And of course, employment and labor market analysis are going to be critical to find out exactly what is happening in this context and where the employment opportunities are for young people. I just want to highlight that I'm presenting this on behalf of my colleague, Kirsten, who was unfortunately not available today because she's ill. She is going to be the program manager or the program leader, so make sure that you take those details down because, and of course, I'm sure if you have not met yet, Jürgen, if you can stand so people can see who you are. Jürgen is my colleague, and he's going to be a very important person in the CPD4E program. Thank you. I'm not sure if there are any questions.
Thank you so much, Zini, and thank you for standing in for Kirsten at such short notice. We really appreciate your willingness to step up. Allow me just one or two, you may take a seat. We'll take questions in a minute. Allow me to just capitalize on some of the points in your presentation and remind some in the audience of prior skills development collaboration between GIZ and NCPC. Back in 2015, was it, Christine, we started on the development process of national qualifications based on the content. The original intent was to develop those qualifications based on the content of the NCPC expert level training courses. At the time, I regularly worked with Karsten from GIZ. He was heading up the Skills for Green Jobs project at GIZ. And GIZ had at the time the Building Energy Audit Technician Training. I remember the title. Good on me. And between GIZ and NCPC, we decided instead of just developing qualifications based on NCPC/UNIDO training material, we're going to join hands and develop two different sets of qualifications. The one based primarily on the BEAT program, the GIZ program, and another qualification based on the NCPC qualification. So we collaborated quite efficiently and successfully on that. It resulted in the first level 6, NQF level 6 qualification, energy audit technician, to be registered a number of years ago, and followed fairly recently by the registration of 7 more qualifications at NQF level 8 based on the expert level disciplines that the NCPC offers. So we have a history of collaborating successfully. We are looking forward to continue that collaboration. In terms of future collaboration, the opportunities that I already see, and I'm sure there are many more to be discovered, includes the support of the NCPC financially and through other resources to implement internships and learnerships based on the existing qualification that were developed successfully between our organizations. So a learnership on energy audit for energy audit technicians is quite conceivable in my opinion. Continuing with the NCPC internship program to benefit the improved employability that you have as a target in your program is also a prospective area for collaboration. The fact that we at the NCPC are committed to upskilling or capacity building within TVET colleges is also another opportunity for us to pursue. I mentioned very briefly, and I cut my introduction short because we are running late today, but I do need to strengthen that comment of yours. You talked about the demand and the supply side. I stated that the NCPC does not position itself as a traditional training provider. We view ourselves as a catalyst to stimulate both the demand and supply side of skills. We do so, yes, by offering training, but not as a traditional training provider. We develop the training material based on collaboration with international partners. We identify certain green skills in demand, green skill sets that will contribute to our collective objectives and mandate, and we then introduce those training opportunities to industry by delivering it ourselves. But while we do that, we also invest in the development of trainers and capacity building of the training industry so that they can take over that responsibility from us, and we will assist them and empower them to continue with the good work that we started so that we are allowed to move on to the next big thing and the next big demand in terms of green skills. So thank you, Zeni, for highlighting the synergies that may exist between our organizations, and this is an open invitation to continue discussions and collaborate further. Please be in touch. We are now taking a few questions. If there are any comments, I have a gentleman here in the third row. Yes. Can you speak in the mic?
Thanks for the presentation. It was quite informative. You know, I think he spoke about the green skills, and then you spoke about the just transition skills. They are somehow similar. Actually, they are similar, but the background of it is not. Because if you don't address the background of it, you are just actually doing the green skills, not just transition skills. So, like when you started, I see, actually it's most people, maybe, I don't know, we start feeling like the audience understand what just transition is or what it means, and then we just say just transition. But if you are in a room with audience that you think maybe they don't know what just transition is, maybe that's the starting point to explain where the concept of just transition mean, because now they will be able to engage properly with you, because now it just sounds like, okay, it's skills development, it's a good thing. But actually, when you are talking about just transition, not the green skills, there are a lot of questions that need to be answered around the concept of just transition. And I felt like, it was not highlighted that way, the just part, because my understanding, which I'm wrong, that's why I'm attending to understand, the just transition, that means you are moving from carbon infested energy to a green energy. But in the middle of that transition, there will be some transition in jobs, meaning that the jobs in the coal sector are going to disappear, or they're going to be reduced. And then those jobs are supposed to be covered by the jobs on the just side. So now there's a place where we need to weigh in the coal jobs and the new jobs. And then from there, that's when we can measure whether this transition is just. Because I'm very worried that there is a transition. But the question that we always have to ask ourselves is that transition just? Because the transition is there. We can't do anything about it. But is it just? Because we need to justify this just in that just transition. And that's how I felt. But other than that, I like the job creation part. But I felt like you should have given the background of the just transition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a very valid point. And we are gradually building up towards the climax of the entire day's proceedings, supporting the skills development, just transition through skills development. So if you stick with us right through the day up to this afternoon's presentation on 4IR technologies, one of the themes that will come across to your satisfaction, I believe, would be that we are supporting the development and utilization of 4IR technologies, but not to replace humans, but for humans to interact with 4IR technology in order to achieve so much more and increase impact. So that is definitely something that will come across later today. I hope you stick around for that. Thank you very much. Any further questions? Are there any questions from the online participants, Christine? Nothing? Oh, we have one here. Can you take the mic through?
Thank you so much. Greetings, and thank you for the presentation. My question is just on the youth side, to say what is it that is in for the youth, especially those that didn't do physics, maths, because most of these opportunities, they will maybe be prioritizing mathematics. And the date of the 1st of June, is it already things are set that someone now can apply from a village somewhere and can apply to the opportunity, or the 1st of June is still the strategic phase? If you can maybe clarify that. If not, then how do people who are looking for opportunities in this space, especially those youth who have just matriculated, some are even having national diplomas, but they are sitting home because they don't have experiential training, your P1, P2. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the questions and the comments. I think just to start off with the gentleman's very important and critical comment about the notion of just transition, and particularly focusing on the just part of it. That is indeed a critical element, and it of course goes beyond green skills. So to combine now the response to that and the response to you is that, yes, 1st June is the start, but as I indicated, 1st June to August is really unpacking, yeah? It's not only strategic, but it's speaking to stakeholders. It's looking at where the opportunities are, because those opportunities will then determine who we partner with, how we partner with them, and with the intention to ensure that the intervention not only builds skills, but builds skills that are going to ensure that young people are employable. So we don't reinvent the wheel of skilling people and then they remain at home, like you are saying, especially in this critical challenge of youth unemployment. So from now until August is the critical design period, conceptualizing it. Of course, I mean, as you know, it's a 3-year program, possibly to be extended by another year. And we know that to intervene or to address this is a much longer process. It doesn't mean that once GIZ and SECO are no longer involved, after 3 years the problem or the challenge goes away. However, the intention is that the intervention by GIZ and SECO catalyzes and can showcase, I know that it's very ambitious, at least some elements of success that can be embedded and replicated in the system. Yeah? So when you think about it in terms of, in this short 3 to 4 year period, where are the critical points of intervention that can take the process forward post 2025, 2026? Because we as South Africans are in this for the long haul. It's not a 3 or 4 year process. It's going to be a process that we're going to walk with 10 years, 20 years, 30 years now. Yeah? So how do we make that 3 to 4 year intervention count? And that should be and the just element critically be integrated into intervention supported.
Thank you very much.
Can I just add, I will speak up to the gentleman. We will still select also the regions that is outstanding. As Sini said, we will look for implementing partners, but also geographically, we're quite open. It will be Gauteng, there will be probably Western Cape, and it will be youth, unemployed youth, in a rural context, semi-urban context, and urban context, meaning mainly from township areas, since we're supporting hubs in the township areas, and Anthony will come now with his presentation about that. So especially opening doors for these kind of young people that you mentioned in the different contexts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jürgen. Colleagues, we are running out of time. I'm going to allow one more very brief question and
Yes,
response.
thank you so much. Thanks for the time that I've given this chance. I'm aware about the time that is affecting us now. My question is about the large number, highest percentage of unemployment. All youth that are students now, that are leaving universities, for the past 4 years, 90% unemployed up to now. This is very important, but it's not important for me as at my age. I'm introduced and starting to know this NCPC only 2 months ago. And now I would like to know, what role can this project that you are dealing be spread to our community, especially to our youth, so they must understand and know this. Not at my age, at 73 years, I look at this thing of unemployment, and it's very critical, but it's not usable for me. I'm having 2 daughters who are unemployed. They are graduates. At home, as I'm talking now, I'm feeding them with my pension fund. Now, this is the thing that I'm asking. What can you, as an organization here, do to spread this message? Because, first of all, our universities, colleges, do not spread anything that you're telling us now, that I'm getting today. So that is my challenge, that I'm starting to forward it to you. It's my request, humble request, to make this thing to be known. Because had I not been invited by Bonolo over the weekend, I would not be here. So now, so many people that you can save, not talking about 6,300 for the past 8 years, but talking about 1 million that can be spread all over for our students, because their courses now got nothing to do with employment. It's just the university to get students, money, and cash. That's all, but not the future employment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, you are preaching to the choir. I think everybody that sits in this room today sits here because they are dedicating their life to this very challenge that you are highlighting. We are doing what we are doing in order to try and address this dire situation in our country of the youth unemployment. And everyone is doing their little bit. What we are pleading for at this point, and that it is something that, in my opinion, is gathering momentum and support from different stakeholders, is to start taking hands and collaborate on joint efforts and pooling our resources to enhance the impact of our individual attempts to address this. And we do so outside of the formal education sector because of the very challenge that you have just identified, that many of those courses do not equip young people adequately for the world of work. And I know that many of our programs at GIZ, at the NCPC, programs supported by SECO and ILO and UNIDO, are designed specifically to equip young people with practical skill sets that enhances their employability, even outside the formal education and training sector. But simultaneously, we are trying to also make an impact by collaborating with the relevant authorities inside the formal education and training sector to also address this. We are committed, for example, as I mentioned earlier, to upskilling and building capacity at TVET colleges, which is one of the areas that I believe that can have an impact on the employability of the youth. So we are doing what we can, and by now joining hands and pooling resources, we are confident that we will be able to increase the impact that we can achieve. But thank you for highlighting that very, very grave issue. I'm afraid we're going to have to move on. Christine, is there someone?
Yeah, so
online?
there's just 2 comments.
Right.
So Barry Bredenkamp just says, great work, guys. But Schlesipe Mtsizana says we will be training 100 youth in energy efficiency and solar PV and battery energy storage across 3 provinces from June 2022 to June 2023. We would like to have our graduates feed in on the current program for sustainability and ensuring that they are skilled further to enhance probability of securing jobs in the industry. I'm from Besoud Africa, an energy services company. We are funded by Nedbank Foundation, and then the contact details.
Right. Please get in touch with us at the NCPC, and through us we will also engage other relevant partners to give some additional impetus to these private and other public initiatives that we become aware of. Please inform us of initiatives that you are involved in. We hope to add momentum to those.